In today's episode, we're exploring some of the most harrowing safari attacks ever recorded. From a seasoned safari guide facing off against a deadly crocodile in the untamed wilderness, to an experienced photographer caught in the path of one of nature's most unpredictable killers, the Cape buffalo. But first, we begin with a family on a dream safari in South Africa, where a once-in-a-lifetime sighting of a leopard took a terrifying turn. The Kruger National Park in South Africa spans nearly 2 million hectares of wilderness, a vast sanctuary where lions roam freely, elephants traverse ancient paths, and leopards lurk in the shadows of acacia trees. For the Baker family from Seattle, Washington, this iconic landscape represented the culmination of years of dreaming and months of planning. Robert Baker, a 42-year-old software engineer, his wife Jennifer, a 39-year-old elementary school teacher, and their 10-year-old son Tyler had saved for 3 years to afford this once-in-a-lifetime adventure. On July 17, 2023, the Bakers rose before dawn at their lodge on the outskirts of Kruger. The air was crisp, carrying the earthy scent of the African bush as they climbed into the open-sided safari vehicle. Their guide, Sipho Nkosi, a veteran ranger with 15 years of experience navigating the unpredictable wilderness of Kruger, greeted them with a warm smile. The morning game drive began with a safety briefing emphasizing the critical importance of remaining seated, keeping all limbs inside the vehicle, and never attempting to touch or feed the animals. As the sun crested the horizon, painting the savanna in hues of amber and gold, the Bakers marveled at the landscape unfolding before them. Herds of impala grazed peacefully, their slender forms silhouetted against the rising sun. A family of elephants ambled across the road, the matriarch pausing to regard the vehicle with intelligent eyes before leading her herd into the bush. For the first 2 hours, the safari exceeded every expectation the Bakers had nurtured during their years of anticipation. Jennifer, an amateur photographer, had invested in a new Canon EOS R5 specifically for this trip. She captured stunning images of giraffes stretching their necks toward acacia branches, zebras creating living optical illusions with their striking patterns, and a pride of lions lounging in the morning sun, their golden eyes half closed in contentment. Each sighting elicited gasps of wonder from Tyler, whose face glowed with the pure joy of witnessing these magnificent creatures in their natural habitat. By mid-morning, the safari vehicle had ventured into a more remote section of the park, where the vegetation grew thicker and the wildlife more elusive. Sipho received a radio call from another guide who had spotted a leopard near the Sabi River, approximately 10 minutes from their current position. Leopards are among the most elusive of the Big Five, and sightings are considered rare treasures even for seasoned safari goers. The Bakers' excitement mounted as Sipho navigated the dusty roads toward the reported location. Upon arrival, they joined 2 other safari vehicles positioned at a respectful distance from a magnificent male leopard. The predator was draped across the low-hanging branch of a marula tree, its spotted coat gleaming in dappled sunlight, powerful limbs dangling languidly on either side of the branch. At approximately 70 kilograms, the leopard represented the perfect combination of lethal power and feline grace. Its amber eyes surveyed the vehicles with apparent indifference, occasionally closing in slow, confident blinks. The Bakers watched in awe, their voices hushed despite being inside the vehicle. Jennifer raised her camera, capturing frame after frame of the magnificent predator. Through her telephoto lens, she could see the individual spots on the leopard's coat, the whiskers twitching slightly in the breeze, the powerful muscles rippling beneath its fur with each subtle movement. But the distance and the angle of the vehicle meant that the branches partially obscured her perfect shot. After 20 minutes of observation, one of the other vehicles departed, creating an opportunity for Sipho to reposition their vehicle for a better vantage point. He carefully maneuvered to a spot approximately 15 feet from the tree, cutting the engine to minimize disturbance. The leopard remained on its perch, seemingly unperturbed by the vehicle's movement. Its tail swayed hypnotically, occasionally flicking with greater emphasis, a subtle warning sign that experienced guides recognize, but tourists often misinterpret as playfulness. Jennifer continued photographing, but frustration began to build as she reviewed her images. The window frame of the safari vehicle created a dark border in her shots, and the protective mesh screen designed to prevent exactly the tragedy that would soon unfold slightly blurred her otherwise perfect images. The leopard shifted its position, stretching its magnificent form along the branch, presenting an even more spectacular pose. In that moment, Jennifer made the decision that would cost her her life. Despite the explicit safety briefing and the clearly posted warnings throughout the vehicle, she quietly moved the mesh screen aside just enough to position her camera lens through the opening. The action took less than 3 seconds, a momentary lapse in judgment driven by the desire for the perfect photograph. The change was immediate. The leopard's posture transformed from relaxed to alert. Its ears swiveled forward to focus on the new opening in what had previously registered as a single harmless entity. Predators in Kruger have learned to ignore safari vehicles as non-threatening objects, but the absence of the security mesh changes the equation, revealing the vulnerable human occupants inside. Sifo noticed Jennifer's vulnerable position and the leopard's changed demeanor simultaneously. His hand moved toward the ignition, intending to start the engine and create noise to deter any potential aggression. But the leopard moved with the explosive speed that makes these predators so lethal in the wild. In a blur of spotted fur and rippling muscle, the leopard launched from the branch, covering the 15-feet distance to the vehicle in a series of bounds that defied human reaction time. It landed on the vehicle's side with precision, one paw hooking the window frame, the other reaching through the opening to sink razor-sharp claws into Jennifer's shoulder. The force of the impact knocked Jennifer sideways into Robert, who instinctively wrapped protective arms around Tyler. The leopard's jaws found Jennifer's neck, powerful canines designed for delivering a killing bite to prey animals now puncturing human flesh. Blood sprayed across the interior of the vehicle as the predator attempted to drag Jennifer through the window opening. A leopard's jaws can generate over 300 to 400 pounds of pressure per square inch, enough force to effortlessly crush the skull of a baboon or pierce the thick hide of an antelope. For a human, it's nothing less than deadly. Sifo reacted with the speed and decisiveness of an experienced ranger. He started the engine and accelerated sharply, simultaneously reaching for the emergency air horn mounted on the dashboard. The sudden movement and the blaring horn momentarily confused the leopard, causing it to release its grip just enough for Sifo to create distance between the vehicle and the predator. But the damage had been done. Jennifer slumped against the seat, her neck catastrophically injured, blood pumping from severed arteries. Robert pressed his jacket against the wounds, his hands trembling as he attempted to stem the bleeding. Tyler sat frozen in horror, his young mind struggling to process the sudden transformation of their dream vacation into a nightmare. Sifo radioed for emergency assistance while driving at maximum safe speed toward the nearest park gate, where a medical evacuation team was scrambled. Despite their rapid response and Robert's desperate efforts to keep pressure on the wounds, Jennifer Baker was pronounced dead upon arrival at the Skukuza Medical Facility. The official cause of death was exsanguination, from multiple lacerations to the carotid artery and jugular vein. The incident sent shockwaves through Kruger National Park and the wider safari tourism industry. An investigation confirmed that all proper safety protocols had been in place and that Sifo had conducted a thorough safety briefing. The tragedy was attributed solely to Jennifer's decision to open the window, a violation of the most fundamental safari safety rule. The leopard was not tracked or euthanized following the incident. Park authorities emphasized that the animal had behaved according to its natural instincts and posed no unusual threat to properly conducted safari operations. The Baker family's tragedy served as a sobering reminder of the wild nature of Kruger's inhabitants and the critical importance of respecting safari guidelines. Robert and Tyler Baker returned to Seattle a week later, forever changed by their experience. In the months that followed, Robert became an advocate for safari safety, establishing a foundation in Jennifer's name dedicated to educating tourists about the importance of following wildlife viewing protocols. Today, guides in Kruger National Park often include the Baker incident in their safety briefings, a stark illustration of how quickly a dream safari can transform into a nightmare when the thin barrier between humans and wild predators is breached. The story serves as a powerful reminder that in the African wilderness, even a moment's lapse in judgment can lead to a terrifying end. Mrs. Baker's reckless mistake cost her everything. A split-second decision turning a thrilling safari into a brutal, blood-soaked tragedy. But at least she saw her killer coming. Deep in the Congo Basin, another safari was about to take a deadly turn. But this time, the attack wouldn't come with warning signs. No growl, no rustling in the grass. No chance to react. Because when a crocodile decides to strike, you never see it coming. The Congo Basin rainforest stretches across 6 African nations, covering over 1.3 million square miles of dense, primeval jungle. It's a place where sunlight filters through layers of canopy in dappled patterns, where the air hangs heavy with moisture, and where life and death play out in constant, silent drama. For Daniel Mercer, a 38-year-old British-born safari guide, this vast wilderness had been home for nearly 15 years. Daniel had built his reputation as one of the most knowledgeable guides in Central Africa. His company, Congo Wilderness Expeditions, specialized in taking small groups of adventurous tourists deep into areas rarely visited by outsiders. Unlike the savanna safaris of East Africa, these expeditions required true wilderness skills, navigating without clear trails, identifying safe water sources, and understanding the behavior of forest elephants, lowland gorillas, and the numerous other creatures that called this place home. By May 2019, Daniel had led over 200 successful expeditions. His weathered face, framed by a salt and pepper beard, bore the lines of someone who had spent years under the equatorial sun. His lean, muscular frame moved through the jungle with practiced ease, each step deliberate and sure. Clients described him as calm, methodical, and supremely confident, qualities that had kept him alive in one of Earth's most unforgiving environments. On May 17, 2019, Daniel led a group of 4 tourists, 2 wildlife photographers from Germany, a British anthropologist, and an American adventure blogger, on what was meant to be a 10-day trek through a remote section of the Congolese rainforest. The expedition had been meticulously planned to coincide with the beginning of the rainy season, when the forest would be at its most vibrant. For the first 3 days, the journey progressed exactly as planned. The group documented rare bird species, observed a family of lowland gorillas from a respectful distance, and marveled at the cathedral-like spaces beneath the towering kapok trees. Daniel's expertise was evident in every aspect of the expedition, from the efficient camp setups to his ability to spot nearly invisible wildlife in the dense foliage. On the 4th day, the group needed to cross the Lulonga River, a tributary of the mighty Congo. The river, swollen from recent rains, presented a significant obstacle. Daniel spent the morning scouting for a suitable crossing point, eventually identifying a section where a massive fallen kapok tree created a natural bridge across the narrowest part of the waterway. What Daniel couldn't know was that the fallen tree had created more than just a crossing. It had formed a perfect hunting blind for one of Africa's most patient predators. A massive Nile crocodile measuring nearly 15 feet from snout to tail tip had claimed this section of river as its territory. Unlike their savanna counterparts that often bask visibly on riverbanks, rainforest crocodiles tend to remain hidden, their dark bodies perfectly camouflaged against the muddy river bottom. This particular specimen was estimated to be at least 70 years old, a survivor from a time before civil wars and poaching had decimated much of the region's wildlife. Its prehistoric body bore the scars of countless battles, its primitive brain honed by decades of successful hunts. It had learned that fallen trees often force animals to cross at predictable points, creating perfect ambush opportunities. The afternoon sun filtered through the canopy, casting dappled shadows across the water's surface. The air was thick with humidity, the constant background noise of insects and distant monkey calls creating the familiar soundtrack of the rainforest. Daniel approached the river's edge, his experienced eyes scanning for any signs of danger. ripples in the water, unusual bird behavior, or tracks in the mud that might indicate the presence of predators. Satisfied with his assessment, Daniel stepped into the shallow water at the river's edge to test the stability of the log before allowing his clients to cross. The water was murky, stained the color of tea by tannins from decomposing vegetation, visibility limited to just a few inches below the surface. The crocodile, perfectly still on the river bottom, was completely invisible. Daniel placed his weight on the log, testing its stability with practiced movements. The clients stood back on the bank, cameras ready to document the crossing. None of them noticed the subtle shift in the water's surface about 20 feet upstream, the only warning of what was about to happen. In a split second, the placid scene transformed into chaos. The crocodile launched itself from the depths with explosive force, its massive body propelled by a powerful tail evolved over millions of years for exactly this purpose. Before Daniel could register the danger, the prehistoric jaws clamped around his right leg with over 5,000 pounds of pressure per square inch, more than enough to crush bone instantly. The attack was so swift, so violent, that Daniel had no time to shout a warning. The massive reptile dragged him into deeper water in a single, powerful movement. The tourists stood frozen in horror as their guide disappeared beneath the surface, the water churning into a frothy red cloud. What happened next lasted only seconds, but would haunt the survivors forever. The crocodile executed its signature killing technique, the death roll. This ancient hunting behavior involves the crocodile rotating its entire body underwater while maintaining its grip on the prey. The torque so powerful it tears flesh and breaks bones, making escape impossible. Daniel's body was twisted beneath the surface, the force of the roll dislocating joints and severing arteries. His survival instincts kicked in, his hands desperately searching for the crocodile's eyes or nostrils, the only vulnerable points on its armored body. But underwater, disoriented and rapidly losing blood, his efforts were futile. The tourists, finally breaking from their shocked paralysis, shouted and threw whatever they could find into the water: sticks, rocks, backpacks, a desperate attempt to distract the predator. But their efforts made no difference. The crocodile, with its prey firmly secured, simply retreated to deeper water, disappearing into the murky depths of the river. Within moments, the surface of the water became still again, as if nothing had happened. The only evidence of the tragedy was a spreading red stain in the water and Daniel's backpack floating where he had dropped it. The four tourists, now stranded in one of the most remote regions of the Congo Basin without their guide, activated the emergency satellite beacon Daniel had provided at the beginning of their expedition. For 2 terrifying days, they remained camped by the riverbank following the safety protocols Daniel had drilled into them, while waiting for rescue. When the helicopter finally arrived, a search team scoured the river for any sign of Daniel. They found only a single boot, washed up on a sandbank nearly a mile downstream. The leather was punctured with distinctive curved marks, the unmistakable signature of crocodile teeth. Daniel Mercer's body was never recovered, likely stored in an underwater cache, a behavior common to large crocodiles, which often keep their prey submerged until it decomposes enough to be easily torn apart. The investigation that followed revealed that while Nile crocodiles were known to inhabit the region's waterways, attacks on humans were extremely rare in this part of the Congo Basin. Daniel, despite his extensive experience, had fallen victim to a perfect ambush from a predator that had been perfecting its hunting technique since the age of dinosaurs. Congo wilderness expeditions implemented new safety protocols following the tragedy, including mandatory use of poles to test water crossings and stricter rules about maintaining distance from all waterways. The company now begins each expedition with Daniel's story, a sobering reminder that in the wilderness, even the most experienced can fall victim to nature's perfect predators. Today, local guides in the region refer to that section of the Lolonga River as the Mamba ya Daniel, Daniel's crocodile, and approach it with particular caution. The massive crocodile is believed to still patrol those waters, a silent reminder of nature's unforgiving power in one of Earth's last great wildernesses. A crocodile is often predicted as a sign of danger, but in the endless plains of the Serengeti, Elliot Grant, a seasoned wildlife photographer, crossed paths with one of the most unpredictable killers, a buffalo. In Tanzania's Serengeti National Park, where golden plains stretch beneath the endless sky, wildlife photographer Elliot Grant pursued his lifelong passion. At 52, the British-born photographer was renowned for capturing Africa's most dangerous creatures: lions mid-hunt, protective elephants, and even the elusive black rhino. His work had graced National Geographic and wildlife photographer covers for over 2 decades. Beyond photography, Elliot was known for his generosity, donating images to conservation efforts and mentoring young photographers. Though divorced, he remained close to his daughters, a filmmaker and a marine biologist. Meticulous, patient, and stubborn in pursuit of the perfect shot, these very traits would lead to his tragic fate. On May 12, 2022, Elliot ventured out with his guide Joseph Makundi, a 45-year-old Tanzanian with over 20 years of experience leading safaris through the treacherous beauty of the Serengeti. The morning had been productive. They had photographed a cheetah with her cubs and a massive crocodile sunning itself by a watering hole. But as the afternoon sun began its descent toward the horizon, casting that magical golden light photographers chase around the world, Elliot was still searching for his perfect buffalo shot. The Cape buffalo, known as the Black Death or the Widowmaker, is one of Africa's most dangerous animals. Weighing up to 1,800 pounds and standing nearly 5 feet tall, these unpredictable giants don't flee from humans, they charge. Their curved horns, spanning up to 4 feet, can gore predators or humans with deadly force. Though not their main weapon, their bite can exceed 1,300 psi, easily crushing bone. Each year, they kill more hunters than any other African animal, securing their spot among the continent's Big 5 most dangerous game. The Land Rover bumped along the dirt track, kicking up dust that hung in the air like golden mist. The Serengeti stretched out around them, a vast tapestry of tall grasses swaying in the gentle breeze, punctuated by the occasional acacia tree with its distinctive flat top. The landscape seemed peaceful, almost serene, belying the dangers that lurked within its beauty. About 200 feet away, a small group of Cape buffalo grazed peacefully in a clearing. The setting sun bathed them in amber light, their dark bodies contrasting dramatically against the golden grass. Joseph slowed the vehicle, approaching carefully before cutting the engine about 100 feet from the herd. For 20 minutes, Elliot photographed the buffalo from the safety of the Land Rover, capturing stunning images as they grazed and moved slowly across the landscape. But he wasn't satisfied. The angle wasn't right. The composition wasn't perfect, and Elliot Grant had built his career on perfection. Despite the guide's stern warnings and reminders about safety protocols, Elliot made a decision he would soon come to regret. He quietly slipped out of the vehicle, crouching low with his Canon EOS 1DX Mark III and 600mm telephoto lens. The equipment alone was worth over $15,000, but the images it could capture were priceless to a man who had dedicated his life to wildlife photography. Joseph watched in alarm as Elliot moved away from the vehicle, staying low in the grass, his khaki clothing blending in with the landscape. The guide frantically gestured for him to return, but Elliot's focus had narrowed to the herd ahead, his mind already composing the perfect shot. What neither man noticed was the solitary bull buffalo partially hidden in a depression about 50 feet to their right. Old and battle-scarred, he had been ejected from the herd by younger, stronger males, a common fate for aging bulls. These solitary males are known to be particularly dangerous, their temperaments made unpredictable by years of fighting and the isolation of being cast out from the herd. The bull watched silently as Elliot crept closer to the main herd, its dark eyes tracking the photographer's movement through the grass. Unlike the grazing herd, this bull was alert, its massive head raised, nostrils flaring as it caught Elliot's unfamiliar scent on the breeze. Elliot, focused entirely on the herd ahead, continued his approach. He moved with practiced stealth, pausing occasionally to take test shots, checking his exposure settings. The light was perfect. that magical golden hour when the harsh African sun softens, casting everything in a warm glow that makes colors pop and creates dramatic shadows. At about 40 feet from the herd, Elliot slowly lowered himself onto his stomach, pressing his body into the dry, sun-baked earth. Each inch forward was painstakingly slow, his breath shallow, heart hammering against his ribs. He crawled the final few feet, his elbows digging into the dirt as he reached a small rise that offered the perfect vantage point. His fingers trembled with excitement as he adjusted the camera lens, focusing on a magnificent female buffalo with a young calf nuzzled at her side. It was the kind of intimate, raw family moment that wildlife magazines would pay handsomely for. Behind him, Joseph sat in the Land Rover, scanning the landscape with a practiced eye. The moment he spotted the solitary bull, a sickening chill swept over him. Something was wrong. The bull's stance had shifted, its massive head dipped low, nostrils flaring, muscles coiled tight like a wound spring. Then came the telltale sign, a front hoof scraping at the ground, slow and deliberate. Classic pre-charge behavior. Joseph's voice was a sharp crack through the still air as he called Elliot's name. He fumbled with the ignition, hands shaking, the engine sputtering to life as he slammed his foot onto the gas. Elliot glanced back, confusion knitting his brow. The sudden commotion didn't make sense until he saw it. The bull was coming. A Cape buffalo could explode from stillness to full-throttle charge in seconds. A hulking mass of muscle and fury closing the distance at an impossible speed. Panic jolted through Elliot's body, his instincts screamed at him to move, but his limbs felt sluggish, weighed down by the crushing grip of fear. At the last possible moment, he scrambled to his feet, his camera abandoned in the dirt. He ran, but it was too late. The buffalo struck like a battering ram. The right horn caught him low, ripping through flesh, muscle, and bone in one horrifying motion. Pain, white-hot, searing, exploded through his body, but only for an instant. The force lifted him clear off the ground, his limbs flailing like a broken marionette. The world tilted violently as the bull wrenched its head, flipping him through the air like a discarded rag doll. He hit the earth hard. Dust and blood filled his mouth as he gasped for breath, but his body no longer felt like his own. The roar of the Land Rover, the desperate shouts of Joseph, the thunder of hooves fading into the distance, it all blurred together, drowning in the crushing silence that followed. And then darkness. Joseph, racing toward them in the Land Rover, watched in horror as the bull circled back. In the wild, Cape buffalo don't just attack, they make sure their target is dead. The massive animal lowered its head again, goring Elliot's already broken body, trampling him with its front hooves in a display of primal fury. By the time Joseph reached them, honking frantically and driving straight at the buffalo to scare it away, Elliot Grant was already gone. His camera lay nearby, the lens shattered, but the memory card intact. Later, when authorities recovered it, they found his final image, a perfect composition of the buffalo herd in golden light, with the blurred shape of the charging bull just visible at the edge of the frame. News of Elliot Grant's death sent shockwaves through the wildlife photography community. He was the third tourist to die in Tanzania that year, but the first professional photographer to be killed by a Cape buffalo in over a decade. His daughters flew to Tanzania to retrieve their father's body and his final photographs, a bittersweet inheritance that captured both his extraordinary talent and the moment that led to his death. The images were stunning, a testament to his eye for composition and his understanding of animal behavior, but they also served as a sobering reminder of the thin line between capturing nature's beauty and falling victim to its power. The Cape buffalo that killed him continued to roam the Serengeti, neither hunted nor relocated. In the vast ecosystem of the national park, it was simply an animal behaving according to its nature, a force as neutral and uncompromising as the landscape itself. Today, safari guides in the Serengeti often tell Elliot's story as a warning to tourists eager to get the perfect photograph. It serves as a stark reminder that in the wild, no image is worth your life, and that nature, for all its beauty, remains untamed and unforgiving to those who fail to respect its boundaries. And if you thought these stories were crazy, wait till you hear about the horrifying pets that ate their owners right in front of everyone. Click here to watch what happened.